السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله، فإن الله تعالى مع المتقين. وبعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says زين للناس حب الشهوات من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث ذلك متاع الحياة الدنيا والله عنده حسن المآب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us that in brief, this life, this dunya has been beautified to people. Everything about this life has been made beautiful to us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the example of women, of children, of fast cars in our time today, fast horses previously, of gold, of silver, minted, unminted, houses, land, all of these things. Add to that clothing, that which we harvest, food, the fineries and the dineries of our time. All of these things are but a beautification, and they serve a purpose. And for us, it's very important, very, very important that we consider the purpose behind the creation of these things. Why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given us these beautiful things? Why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed us and created us in a way that we are attracted to that which is considered to be dunya? And especially for the men, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He speaks in the Quran to us about the beautification of this life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically mentions things that are attractive to men in particular. It's not to say that they are not attractive to women. Of course, women, they want children. Women, they like gold and so on and so forth. But men, they like to hoard. They like to collect. They consider these things status items. And perhaps one of the reasons is because men are more susceptible to the traps and the trials and the tribulations that the beauty of this life can offer. But going back to the point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created these things for a purpose. What purpose? In order to understand the purpose of this dunya, we have to understand our own purpose. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah says, I have not created jinn and mankind except but for one reason alone, to worship. To worship. As for the dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He refers to it Himself, the creator of this dunya. Mata'un qaleel. It's a small amount of pleasure. Gharoor. Deception. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ الدُّنْيَا خُلْوَةٌ خَدِرَةٌ وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مُسْتَخْلِفُكُمْ فِيهَا فَنَاظِرٌ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاءِ. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allah has made this dunya sweet and green. Sweet and green. It tastes good. And taste is not only the taste of the tongue. Internally, it can add something to your life. And it's green. Of course, for us, we don't appreciate the greenery perhaps because we live in a concrete jungle. But step outside of this concrete jungle and you will find the greenery brings tranquility to your life. In fact, some of the Sahaba stayed behind from some of the battles of the Prophet ﷺ because of the greenery of the desert. So what about the greenery of the hills that we have around us, etc.? But what's the purpose behind it? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed you therein, i.e. in the dunya, mustakhlifukum, as a khalifa, the one who takes responsibility for this place on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَنَاظِرٌ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. And He is looking at how you interact, what you do in this dunya. And the Prophet ﷺ, he then said, فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا. So be wary of the dunya. Protect yourself from the dunya. Taqwa. We know taqwa as being God consciousness. But the word, as has been mentioned previously, the word taqwa, the ulama, they say it comes from wiqaya. It's to place a barrier, a shield between you and that which you are trying to have taqwa from. فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا. Place a shield between yourself and the dunya. Do not become enticed by the dunya. Do not lose yourself to the dunya. Do not forget yourself in the dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when talking about the non-Muslims, what does He say? نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. They forgot Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so what did Allah do? Made them forget themselves. How does a person forget himself? It's not that he wakes up and says, who am I? No, it's that he forgets his purpose. He runs after that which is not relevant to him. He runs after that which has no real value to him. And in order to understand that which has value, we have to look at things in the bigger picture. The easiest way to determine that which has value and that which has no value is to ask ourselves, what is going to remain with me when I leave this life and enter the grave? What's going to remain with me? The Prophet ﷺ, he answered, يَتْبَعُ الْمَيِّتْ ثَلَاث. Three things. أَهْلُهُ وَمَالُهُ وَعَمَلُهُ. His family, his wealth, and his actions. Two of those things, the Prophet ﷺ said, they return. They take you to the grave, but they don't go in with you. And in fact, you will find at many funerals, people are laughing. People are joking. People are smiling. Why? Because they haven't seen some of the people that come to the funerals for a long time. The only people that are really grieved, families and close friends. And out of the family and the close friends, only one person perhaps will enter your grave on your behalf if they could. And that's your mother. That's your mother. She's perhaps the only person. If she could, she would enter the grave with her own child, no matter how old the child is. But as for everyone else, perhaps some fathers, but today we see some fathers, they're happy in the dunya all over the world and they've got children. In non-Muslim lands, they don't care. So what's about in the grave? But as for your wealth, another man inherits it. Your wife, unfortunately, if you're young and she's young, perhaps another man will take her. Your kids, someone else will look after them. Your car, you're just looking after it for the next man that takes it from you. The cash you have in your pocket, someone else is going to have that cash in their pocket soon. Everything leaves us. The only thing that we take from this dunya, our nasib of this dunya that enters the grave other than the amal, according to Imam al-Qurtubi, rahimahullah, is what? The kafan. That's your nasib min ad-dunya. That's what you take with you from this material place. Your shroud. That's it. Everything else leaves. So what remains? Your amal. So what's important then? Your amal. That's what's important. Everything else is secondary. Do you need to be wealthy to have good amal? No, you don't. Do you need to be good looking to have good amal? No, you don't. Do you need to be healthy to have good amal? No, you don't. But these are the things that we're told are important today. If you're balding, go and get a hair implant. If you don't look the way you should look according to social media, go and get some plastic surgery done. If you don't have enough money, you're not a man. If you don't have muscles, you're not strong. All of these things are fake. It's fakery. It's a false reality. The reality is, if you do not look as pleasant as you would like to look, but you have patience, you'll be rewarded. Amal. If you're balding and you have patience, rewarded. Amal. If you're weak but you're patient, rewarded. Amal. And in fact, the Prophet ﷺ, he was the companion of the masakin. The weak were his close companions. Generally speaking, he would spend time with the weak. And the first to enter the da'wah of the Anbiya previously was the weak and the impoverished. It's the amal that counts. The amal is the reason that we're here. And again, has been mentioned many times, who's better? Al-Ghani al-Shakir or Al-Faqir al-Sabir? The wealthy person who is grateful, i.e. he spends from his wealth, or the patient person who is poor. Who's better? The ulama have a discussion. Some will say the Ghani al-Shakir is better than the Faqir al-Sabir, and some will say the opposite is true. Unfortunately for us, we're in a predicament in the West, because we find ourselves either we are wealthy, but we're not grateful, or we're poor, but we're not patient. When we're wealthy, we spend on ourselves. We don't spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we're poor, we complain about being poor. And we feel sorry for ourselves. This dunya is a deception. It's a deception. Every single one of us in this masjid has a limited time on this earth. A limited time. When the angel of death, Malakul Maut, and his helpers are standing in front of us, waiting to take our soul at that appointed time, we're not going to say to ourselves, if only I purchased that nice jacket that I liked. If only I went to that expensive restaurant one more time. If only I was driving a BM instead of driving a Ford Fiesta. No one's going to say something like that. No one's going to say to themselves, if only my wife was a bit more beautiful. If only my biceps were larger. No one says anything like that. But what does a person say? If only I read the Quran more. If only I prayed more. If only I gave Sadaqah. That money that's in my bank account now, if only I gave some of it in Sadaqah. Why? Because this dunya, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And shallow people find their esteem in that which they own, in that which they have, in the way that they look. This is a sign of shallowness. And slowly but surely society has entered into shallow waters. Rarely do you find a person of depth and character in our times today. Why? Because to be a person of depth and character, you have to actually read. You have to educate yourself. You have to have something you can contribute and offer to society. But today, that's not the case. Everyone wants to offer to themselves. Everyone's too busy thinking about their stomachs and their private parts. That's the reality of the West. Step outside and have a look at the billboards. If you think it's too harsh, step outside. That's the reality of the West. The West has entered into shallow waters. The only concern you have is yourself. Your parents put them in a home. Poor people, don't look at them. Spend on yourself. You deserve it. You work hard, etc. Look at the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, what did his wife say about him? He said that, they said that, there would rarely be a fire in our homes. I.e., they would rarely eat cooked food. Aisha anha, she said, after the battle of Khaybar, our bellies were full for the first time in a long time. Full upon what? As has been mentioned before, dates and barley wheat. Dates and barley wheat. The Prophet ﷺ, after having a meal, sharing a meal with Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he said, we are going to be questioned about this on Yawm al-Qiyamah. About this ni'mah, one meal, which in comparison to the average meal we have today, wouldn't be considered a meal. But yet we complain. We complain. And we feel sorry for ourselves. And we constantly look up at what we don't have, rather than looking down at what we do have. And many of us, Allah has opened the dunya to us, but we don't enjoy it. Why? Because we're too busy considering the things we don't have to recognize and enjoy and benefit from that which we do have. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us those that don't run after the dunya, but run after the akhirah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us shukr. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده وصلوات ربي وسلامه على أشرف الأنبياء ومن تبعه وبعد. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ مِمَّا أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا يُفْتَحُ عَلَيْكُم مِّن زُهْرَةِ الدُّنْيَا وَزِينَتِهَا. The Prophet ﷺ, he said it. He said, that which I fear for you, i.e. the Ummah of Islam. And he was speaking to who? To the Sahaba. He said, that which I fear for you is what? That this life opens itself up to you, the dunya, just as it opened itself up to those who came before you. And then what happened to those that came before you? They were destroyed. They were destroyed by the dunya. Take a look. What's happening to us? Especially the youth. This dunya has to be considered for what it is. It's an enemy. It's a trial. It's a tribulation. Shaitan uses it to entice us. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that the hellfire has been surrounded with what? With desires. Desires. Desires relating to what? To the dunya. And Jannah has been surrounded by what? By trials, by tribulations, by patience. This dunya is not our friend. This dunya is not to be enjoyed. This dunya is to be feared. This dunya is to be feared. There are two main enemies around us that can affect our iman. And I conclude with this, inshallah. Ash-shubuhat wash-shahawat. There are those that fall to doubts. That's their destruction. Doubts in iman, doubts in Islam, etc. And there are those that fall to desire. And unfortunately for me, I have seen individuals that have fallen victim to both. Why do I say unfortunately? Because it terrifies you when you see it with your own eyes. Someone that falls victim to their desires, to their stomachs, to their private parts. It leaves you saying, Allahumma sallim sallim, Allahumma sallim sallim. This place is dangerous and we need to wake up. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and grant us the ability to see that which is dangerous to us and protect us from the fitan, that which we know of and that which we don't know of. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن أبي بكر وعن عمر وعن عثمان وعن علي وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين اللهم تب علينا واعف عنا واحفظنا من الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن وأقم الصلاة.